going to talk for like 30 minutes straight. But we got to hit the bottom of the hour. We'll be right back. This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. Back after this.
Ho, ho, ho! Santa Claus here! Holidays got you down? Wishing you could just get away from them for a while? Well, join my buddy Steve Long on Liberty Unfiltered Radio, Wednesday nights on Vigilant Liberty Radio. Tune in and there won't be any coal in your stocking this year. Ho, ho, ho!
Mr. President, members of Congress, you've been making a lot of noise about taking our guns away. But you might want to review history. 1835, Gonzales, Texas Territory. The authorities wanted to confiscate the big gun that protected that colony. You know what the people said? Come and take it. Because they were willing to fight for their freedom and their guns. So are we.
Come and take it if you want it. Come and take it if you think you can. Come and take it, but I warn you, you'll have to pry it from our cold dead hands. We want the freedom that God gave us, so you best not cross that line. If you want this gun, you gotta come through us and take it.
One shot at a time. Just like Gonzales, we're keeping our guns.
This is Chuck Dixon, the co-creator of Bane, and you're listening to Vigilant Liberty Radio.
And back here on Saturday Night Cigar Lounge, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. Propaganda. We all thought nation states were a good idea, I think is the track, but I'm pretty sure that Jason Pye can correct me on that.
I didn't like that record.
Really?
I didn't like that record. Today's Empire, Tomorrow's Ashes, and everything before it. Very good. Everything after that, Today's Empires.
I gotta admit, I kind of went with the first Propaganda song that popped up on YouTube, which is sad because I have like 4 of their albums.
I was at song. I was at a show in Stockbridge, Georgia. You guys have heard of Collective Soul, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I love Collective Soul.
So, yeah, I grew up I spent a little bit of time growing up in Stockbridge, Georgia, which is where they're from, and we used to rent out this community center, and it's just a bunch of punk bands, local punk bands got together and played, and the guys I eventually played with were in another band called The Goonies, obviously, The Goonies, and I ever heard a Propaganda song, I think it was Scott Fox, and yeah, that was like, God, 1997 or 98, Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm getting old.
Which is funny because, Jason, I think you're the youngest person here.
Oh,
I'm 35, so.
I turned 34 in like 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, you're the youngest person here.
Okay, all right. I retract my previous statement.
Right.
I mean, that's a nice possible way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whether we like it or not, punk's not really going to go away, which is fine, because it seems like there are these gateway bands that no matter what your age or what generation it is, there are these gateway records that get teenagers excited. I've seen it with Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables, Minor Threat's complete discography, and Green Day's Dookie, Blink-182's Enema of the State, as well as Black Flag's Damaged, as well as Nevermind Bollocks and first 3 Clash records. So, I'm fine with that. It's just you have to kind of draw the line about what kind of things from your childhood do you want to take with you into adulthood. And there's an excellent documentary called The Other F Word about guys that play in punk bands that are trying to juggle being in a full-time punk band, but also being a responsible father and husband. And Joe Escalante, who is a long-time punk dude, I mean, he was somebody, the Vandals started in the early 80s, and they are still around. And how it's like, was the attitude about punk rock was that you would be living on the street as a gutter punk and you have 3 children that you don't know even exist? Or are you supposed to be someone that lives out in the suburbs and have a happy life, but you still have your tattoos of like the 4 Black Flag bars or the Crimson Ghost from the Misfits? It to me, as long as you always speak from your heart, and you have to accept that you're an adult now and that you have to take responsibility, and you can't be irresponsible for the rest of your life. I think it's great that I could go to a record store and talk to somebody that, say, got to see Husker Du or the Minutemen back in the day. And as long as he or she is okay with understanding that things have passed since then, and we can have an open dialogue and discussion about what got us into punk rock, yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, so what are y'all's feelings on that, Roman and Jason?
Go ahead.
Roman.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's one of those deals where, with the music, it's kind of just like hip hop, and on that vein, a friend of mine just did a doc film on that.
Punk rock.
I think we're.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I just think that. No, I agree. At the same time, though, we're kind of looking at it from an older, standpoint. It's like I play live music nowadays again, and the way I approach everything is entirely different from what I was doing back in the Dallas scene, in 1990. So I think some of that, we have that perspective on it. So I don't know if I'm a teenager, if I'm younger, I'm, going to probably still be doing the rock and roll portion of it, just like I would have back then. So but I think nowadays, kids do grow up faster. And I do think that it's real nice that, they can kind of see a lot more in one vein. You lose your innocence a lot faster, but I think, especially with the music world, I think you can see what all pitfalls are out there, whether it's personally or whether it's as a whole band or whether it's your family or everything.
Punk rock is always, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with punk rock, because to me it's always been about not conforming. It's a subculture that has always existed and has been very fuck you to everybody else who's involved, right? I mean,
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like punk rock, there are certain segments of rock that I don't understand, like how we can be so sort of, in some respects individualistic, right? Because that's what not conforming to society's way is. It's expressing a certain form of individualism in punk rock. But when you get into the subculture of punk rock, it's very collectivist, like the straight edge movement, for example, being very collectivist and preaching those certain aspects of social justice. And you mentioned Joe Escalante, who, now I've never been a huge Vandals fan. I like him. The dude's like a rare, and I'm going to interject politics because it's what I do for a living, but he's a Republican. And who's in punk rock. And, you don't see that very often. And Michael Graves is a libertarian-leaning Republican, the guy who eventually stepped up to the mic for the Misfits years after Danzig left. But punk rock, it seems like it only exists as a movement, very strong and getting played on the radio when there's a Republican presidency, for example. They have something to preach against. It was Reagan in the 80s. It was Bush in the 2000s. Right? That's what you had Rock Against Bush records coming out. I've written a couple of stories about this over the years. It's kind of like being really pissed off with the punk rock movement.
Well, especially during Reagan's administration. There was
well, you have bands like the Reagan Youth and, No Effects. God, they still shit on Reagan, but see, I see a lot of the same in terms of, nobody says anything bad about Obama. They don't say anything bad about Clinton. It's always a Republican, and that's why, where my love-hate relationship comes in.
I will point something out that I thought was really interesting. was I was watching the music video for King's 810. King 810. I blame Amanda McAllister for having me look them up. But they did a song I think it's called State of Nature. And their comment was, you say you're going to be someone and then you do something other or something like that. And on their music video they put up a picture of Obama and I was like, holy crap. I couldn't believe that.
But it's like Fat, for example. I love NoFX. I was so excited to see him at Riot Fest.
You love who?
NoFX.
NoFX. Okay.
Yeah, just a fan. I like him a lot. I was really excited to see him at Riot Fest. They played Punk and Drublic from front to back at Riot Fest, which was awesome. It's just I'm really upset that and I know it's punk rock, and maybe being inconsistent is part of being punk rock, and maybe that's how some of them look at it. I don't know, there's a measure of hypocrisy there that really bothers me. It's like they just only rant and rave about stuff when a Republican's president, and I get it, but I mean,
yeah, I would say along those lines, what people are attracted to with what seems like fringe music is that they don't feel like they're a part of the establishment, and so when their favorite bands become a part of the establishment, all those bands are lame. And
it's true.
I can understand that, and but at the same time, let's see. I'm trying to think. Oh, Jimmy Eat World. That's a great example of a band that they're not a political band, but I'm just using the example of I saw them play in a teeny tiny little venue in Denton that's still around, and the place was packed. It was sold out, and people were going crazy. I got to see Jimmy Eat World on the Clarity Tour, and then the third and final time that I saw Jimmy Eat World, they were playing the American Airlines Center, opening for the Foo Fighters, and
wow.
You want to definitely have a reality check. Was that there was this really drunk girl just a few people away from me, and she kept yelling, "Play old shit!" And I'm thinking, oh, she probably likes Static Prevails or Clarity. No, she wanted to hear stuff from Bleed American. That's old shit to her. And
he's a terrible person.
Yeah, this is when Chase This Light came out. And so, all it really meant for me was instead of being able to walk up to the band right after the show, you have to deal with publicists and you have security and all this this was the band that wasn't trying to become popular. And at the same time, I don't think Green Day was trying to become too popular. I don't think Blink-182 was trying to become popular. They were just trying to be the best version of their band as possible. And it's easy to attach yourself to the myth of the self-destructive artist as well, where it's just Black Flag, they lived really hard. And it's and the reality is that most of them never will speak to each other again because a bad deal's gone wrong. I mean, you bring up Greg Ginn around Henry Rollins, Chuck Dukowski, Bob Mould, even Mike Watt. They have a lot of mixed feelings about that guy because of the fact that Greg Ginn has not paid royalties. I'm not slandering by speaking out of line here. The guy has not paid royalties to some of his biggest artists from the 80s. And that's why people are hate that guy. Appreciate what he did for my band, but I hate that guy and I never want to see him again.
All right, here's who we have because JD, formerly known as NJ Libertarian, now known as NJJDB. Good grief, JD. Asked, I have Eric Grubbs, the author of Post, a look at the influence of post-hardcore, 1985 to 2007. Jason Pye from Freedom Works is here as well, as is Roman Flute. We are all talking punk rock. By the way, I will say this. I have to thank both Jason and Eric for helping me expand my music listening.